Hello, fellow realtors. My name is David Mashonsky, and I'm here to walk you through a amazing new realtor benefit that your local board or association may have already emailed you about. What is it? Well, it's a new app which makes it easy for us as realtors to comply with the Code of Ethics during every step of each of our buy-sell transactions. Here's what's happened. The National Association of Realtors licensed its Code of Ethics to Quigler, and we in turn have created a free version of our Quigler app. Now, our full Quigler app takes federal law, state law, and the Code of Ethics, and it tells us as realtors and the consumer everything that each of us is required to do at every step of the transaction. It's a kind of mentor and guide for the entire transaction. Now, the NAR Code Only app just has the code, but that still puts us way ahead of the game because the code often is reflected in federal law as well as many state laws. And in most states, the code came before state law. So by following the code, we actually are often in compliance with federal law and with state law. Now, we've now presented this as a free realtor benefit. But not only is it a free realtor benefit included in your dues, but there are many benefits to it. Let me walk you through them. First, we now as realtors have a mentor and a guide. We know exactly what's required of us at every step of the transaction, and we know what a consumer is required to do, and we can convey that to a consumer. And that means we feel safer and our clients feel safer and more secure knowing what we all need to do at every step. What it also does is help to increase our value proposition. Remember, 97% of consumers say they want an agent with honesty and integrity. 93% want better, more enhanced communication. 92% want process knowledge. Now, with this app, we can give them all of the things that they want. And partly that's because we are allowed to include and invite buyers and sellers into the transaction so that they can see what is required at every step. This kind of transparency is absolutely unprecedented in our industry, but now it is possible and you can give it to them. And that means you can take even great communication, which you may now be doing, and put it on steroids. Remember, 93% of consumers want better communication, and now you can give it. And all of this helps us to both create more leads and to convert leads. If you're working with Zillow leads or you're working with some cold leads, now you're going to be able to go to people and be able to have a business gen tool that helps you to develop their trust. And you're developing the trust because you are giving them the honesty, the integrity, the communication, the process knowledge, the transparency, all of which leads to trust. So let's begin. Go out to quigler.com/NAR code and just click the Start Here free tab. You'll come to a sign up page that looks like this, and just put in your first name, last name, an email, create a password that you can remember, and then put in a partner code if it was given to you by your local board or association. If it was not yet, don't worry about it, or if it was and you forgot it or don't know it, just put NAR code there. That's it. You have now registered for this free benefit. Go check your mailbox and you will get an email confirmation from us. When it comes in, just hit confirm and you are done. You will land at this screen. We're going to focus on test drive. This is just going to be a quick tutorial to get you under the hood so that you know what this is all about and how it works. So in order to now extract from our database what are the requirements for a particular transaction, all you do is give us two pieces of information. First, do you want a seller or a buyer transaction? And then, what kind of property do you want the transaction for? A single family, a condo, co-op, or a multifamily. Then you fill in some information about what state you're in and then click Finish. You now are going to come to a very familiar screen for you. This screen has the steps and the actions on it. Across the top are the various steps. They're sequential. They start at the beginning with pre-listing activities. They go through the all-important agency discussion, compensation. They flip to the seller and other disclosures, which is often what the consumer is required to do. and they go all the way to escrow and closing. Now under the steps, you'll see these 3 tabs, and these tabs identify the actions that and the status of them below. The first tab, Open, means that these are incomplete actions. These are actions that you are required or the consumer is required to do. The second tab are Completed. Once they're done, that's where you'll find them. And I'll explain the Agree tab in a moment to you. Let's just focus now on the specific actions, and I'm going to do 4 of these. Each action is a simple yes or no question. You see it here. Now, what I want to make sure everybody understands about Quigler is just like NAR C2X. This is not a test. We're not trying to find out how much or how little you know about the code. All we're trying to do is help to make you constantly compliant with it. So if you answer any question honestly but incorrectly, this is what happens. You get a stop sign, and it basically just says answer the other question. And we'll show you how you can learn throughout the entire process by actually doing things wrong. But it's impossible to do anything wrong, because if you do, we put you right back on track. Okay, so I'm now going to do 4 of these actions and just show you what happens. Now, the first one is a fair housing advertising action. Now, this happens to be a federal law, and it also happens to be, in many cases, a state law, and the NAR code also covers it. Again, it's a yes or no. We're going to click yes, of course, because we don't want to discriminate in any of our advertising. The next one is truth in advertising. Now, this happens to be something that the code requires, and that is that we not misrepresent or conceal any pertinent facts in our advertising. And that includes some of those images that right now we keep enhancing, and we need to make sure that when we include them, we don't represent that that is what the property looks like. We need before and after shots. So we want to click yes to that one. Then I'm just going to deal one on a state level. Again, Quigler has state and federal in addition to the code, and some listeners or viewers may have that version. If you do have that version, this happens to be a Florida law, and it's an advertising requirement where Florida has very specific guidelines about how a property needs to be advertised. So if you were somebody in Florida, you would be required to answer yes to this. And then finally, there is the signage consent. And I believe all 50 states have this requirement that you get the seller's consent before you advertise or put a sign on their property. Okay, now I did 4 of these, and I want to just show you what happened to the 3 action tabs above. Remember, we had 9 to begin, and now when you look, we've reduced that to 5. And now 4 of them have jumped over to the completed actions column. Now, this means that at any point in time, you can come into your transaction, you can just click on a step above, and you can instantly see what you have not yet done under the open actions, what you have done under the completed. Now, here the 4 of them are, and when you click completed, they will all open up. And if you would like to open up the text associated with each one, just go over to the far right and you'll find these down tabs. Click them, and they'll all open up for you. And now you can read exactly what the consumer is seeing from you. And it basically said, David explained, David discussed, David's brokerage has agreed, and so forth. This is what the consumer sees on their side of the application, and it serves as a notification from you to them. Now I'm going to do just one more again to demonstrate again how Quigler keeps you on track. This also happens to be a Florida one, and it happens to be a requirement for every buyer to receive an energy efficiency brochure. Now if you say no, you didn't do it, up pops the stop sign. Okay, so now you know how Quigler always keeps you on track. I'm now going to try to just demonstrate some of the other bells and whistles that Quigler has by taking you to the 5th step, which is seller and other disclosures, and we'll just deal with the lead paint disclosure as a way of displaying this. Now, lead paint, as you know, is a requirement in all 50 states. It's a federal law. And so when we have any law that has forms associated with it, we try to provide them to you. So with the NAR code only version, there's really only one form we give you because there aren't really many forms associated with the code, and that is a chart of penalties to which you can be subject. But if you are operating on the full version with federal law and state law, we will give you, in this case, the actual brochure so that you can print it out. We would also give you the lead paint forms and so forth. The Download Forms tab, by the way, also has links to Instant, to ZipLogic, to Simplicity, so that if you want to go into your own account, you could just go and extract the form. The next bell and whistle is one we've already sort of taken a peek at, and that is, what will my client see? So after you complete an action, we've showed you what they will see, but many agents wanted to see what it would say beforehand. So we've put that here while it's still an open action, and you just click on it, and it shows you what the client notification is going to look like. And here's another one. Then we have the all-important Why tab. Now the Why tells you why you need to do this. And what it is a direct citation from the Code of Ethics telling you what the code requires. So again, you don't have to have the code memorized. We help you with it here. And as you go through and as you click the Why tab, you're going to get to really know the code much better, because this isn't something you're going to do every 2 years. You're going to be able to go through each of your transactions and you learn as you go. Now, if by chance there's also a federal citation, we list that. And we always start with the federal, then we go to state, and then we go to city if that's pertinent, and then we go to the NAR code. Finally, there are the penalties that, and you want to know what these are, that may be inflicted upon you if you don't comply with the code. And here we tell them what happens with the National Association of Realtors. Now, in addition to what we've done here, you may recall that in May of 2018, NAR also passed a resolution that allows your local board to out you if you are convicted of violating the code. Now, that is not something that's good for your business, but that is another potential penalty lurking out there. Now again, in lead paint, this is a penalty that we've seen all around the country, $10,000 fines for not filling out properly the lead paint form. And that leads me to Pro Tips. Pro Tips is where we share with each other ways to help us all to be compliant with the code, with federal law, with state law. A great example of this came to us from Florida recently regarding lead paint, where a broker owner called us and said, hey, the feds are down here and they're handing out $10,000 fines like Pez. And what we learned is why they were doing that, and it had to do because the order in which a particular the signatures were obtained were not obtained properly, and they go seller agent, buyer, and buyer agent. So we've now put that into professional tips. Okay, that's it. Now you know everything there is to know about the meat, the core of Quigler. Let's go and click on the transaction up on the top, and that because this is your transaction dashboard again. And it's going to take you to this page. Now what we just did is created a test drive, and there you see it. It's for a seller transaction, a single family, happens to be in Greenwich, Connecticut, and it says test drive. What I now want to show you is how to add your current transactions to Quigler. You may have 3 or 4 buyers you're dealing with, you may have 2 or 3 sellers, and you may want to bring them in, or you may just want to have Quigler private to you so that you know you're always being compliant. Therefore, go up in the upper right and click on New Transaction. Now, when you click on a new transaction, the first thing we ask you, which is the only thing that's different from test drive, is do you want this to be private to you, or do you want to share it with a client? Now, initially, you may just want it to be private to you, but we strongly don't urge that, because the whole point here is to make sure that the consumer knows that you are bringing honesty, integrity, communication, process knowledge, and total transparency to them. So we would urge you to share this with a client. And again, there it is. You click one or the other. Now, regardless of whether you do, you're now going to find under Add a Transaction another field. First, you're going to do the same thing you did before. Is it a seller or a buyer transaction? And then second, you're now going to be asked to input your client info. Now, regardless of which you chose, whether private or public, you should add this. If it's private to you, you're adding it only because it's a way of you organizing your transactions from 123 Main Street to 345 Elm Street. But if it's going out to the consumer, then you want to fill this in as much as possible as a client service to the consumer. Then you've seen this already. You tell us what kind of property it is, and is it a single, condo, co-op, and where it is, and you click finish, and you're done. And now on your screen you will see a transaction, and the transactions are in white, and this is for a seller of a single family. And notice it says invitation pending. That's because I chose to invite the consumer into the transaction, and I'm waiting for them to pick up an email. So let's jump right into the consumer notification. Now, when you invite the consumer, they're going to get this kind of a notification in their email, and it's going to say that you've invited them to join you in Quiglr, and you're going to provide them transaction transparency, constant communication, and unprecedented accountability. It's a kind of little ad for you. And then we show them to please accept the invitation and fill out this little form, which is their first name, last name, email, and a password. And then we explain to them that on their transaction dashboard, which looks identical to yours, in the upper right, they're going to have a notification bell. And that bell, we explain to them that every time you do something that's required by the Code of Ethics, they're going to get an instant communication. And in this case, it says that there are 5 of them on the bell. Now, when they click on that bell, they're going to come to this page. And this page basically says on the top that I'm the individual selling their home. In this case, they're selling with one agent and they're buying with a different agent. And that's fine. Quiglr can handle both from a consumer's point of view. And it says that at the showing step, there are 2 actions that I've completed. And at the offer step, there's 2. So they just click on those and it opens them up. Now notice what it does. It says that on Thursday, May 23rd, 2019, I did the following. So it timestamps and dates and creates a running record. Notice also to the far right in black, it marked as agreed. We are constantly prompting the consumer to agree that you did what you said you told them that you did. And notice these 2. We also say give them the opportunity on this page to mark all of your actions as agreed, or they can just mark the ones in this particular step. It's up to them. But we're constantly encouraging and prompting the consumer to agree that you did them. Now, here's why. Because remember, these actions started as incomplete, then they were completed, and you saw them on that page. But once the consumer agrees that you did them, they pop over here to the Agree tab. And they look like this. Basically says that I informed you of this, and you agreed that I did so on such and such a date. Now, here's the big bomb. Here's the big wow. Notice in the upper right, under the Agreed tab, you can export all the agreed actions, or you can export the particular actions in one step. You can choose, and you can export those to this page. This is what we call the agreed list. Now, the agreed list takes everything that the consumer has agreed you have done, organizes it sequentially from the first step on, and basically it says, here's what I did on such and such a date, and here's what you agreed I did, and when you agreed to it. Now, all of this can then be printed out, copied to a clipboard, be printed out on your company stationery. It can be emailed to the consumer. It can be handed to them at the closing. What an incredible reminder to them of how good you are at closing. It can be put in the transaction folders so that if anything comes back to haunt you, you can show that you did it and the consumer agreed you did it. And you can take it to your E&O insurance company and try to negotiate a discount, which we're trying to do for you right now. Okay, now if you ever need help, you just go up to the Help tab and there'll be a drop down and you can choose among these. There's the tutorial page, which you will find this among other tutorials on. And now we just want to take you through 2 more things. Now, if you are not going to have a public profile, and by the way, the public profile is not included in the free NAR code app. It is an upgrade. It's just $99. But if you are not going to do that, then you can just end this right here. But if you would like to have a profile and get your first A grade on it so the consumer and the public knows that you are somebody who's compliant with the code, then you need to just come in and quickly do the ethical checklist. And that's found right here. Just click on it. And what this is we have extracted from the Code of Ethics everything required for the transaction and put it into Quiggler. But obviously the code is bigger than just a transaction. We have duties to our fellow citizens, to our fellow realtors, to consumers. So all this is it takes all of those actions, puts them here. They're not yes or no because you can't disagree with them. You've already agreed to do all this. And all you do is read them and check them off. And if you want to know why, click these, and it will give you the exact citation from the code. Click Save, and you're done. Then, when you have a profile, you'll have an A grade associated with your name. Now, if you decide you can't finish the checklist because you got to run out to a showing or the phone rings, don't worry about it. You can just come back to it at any time, or you could proceed now. All right. Finally, if you choose to have a profile, you will hit Complete Profile. Now you can always go and work on your profile up there where your name is on your transaction dashboard. And when you either hit the Complete Profile tab or this one, you'll come to this page. And you'll find on the left there are 6 things you need to do. Among them is enter your picture. And this, I'm not going to go through this because it's very simple. You just go and start adding this information. And then we also just remind you that we look for your license number and your NERDS number, and this is what your profile page ends up looking like. Now, if you ever want to edit it, you just go up and click on your name and you can edit it. Okay, that is the NAR code only application, and that is your free realtor benefit. And if you choose that you want to have the $99 profile, you can do this. If you're in a state and you would like to have more than just the free version or just a profile, you want all the federal law and your state law, then go click on the right-hand side, and you'll actually be given a discount, 50% off discount within 14 days. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Quiggler. Welcome to the Quiggler family.